Welcome to the channel Cucuy, where nightmares don't wait for bedtime. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. 3 tales, 1 chance to look away. But you probably won't, because it's already watching. The Vanishing Hotel. The BlackWood Hotel stood, a monolithic sentinel of sorrow, on a forgotten corner of the city's decaying heart. Its very foundation seemed to hum with a low, mournful thrum, a testament to the countless tragedies it had silently absorbed. Built in the year 1924, this edifice of brick and mortar had borne witness to more despair, more final breaths, than any structure should ever endure. It was a place where the veil between worlds felt impossibly thin, a repository of lingering echoes. Its grand facade, once a beacon of luxury, now merely cast a long, oppressive shadow over the surrounding streets. Every window seemed to gaze out with a vacant, unseeing stare, reflecting only the grey, indifferent sky. The air around it was perpetually still, heavy with an unspoken history, a silent testament to the lives that had entered its doors and never truly left. Among the hundreds of rooms within the BlackWood's labyrinthine corridors, room 1408 was an anomaly, a whispered secret even among the hotel's oldest staff. It defied all logic, all understanding of occupancy and vacancy. For 3 decades, an unbroken chain of records showed it as continuously occupied, a perpetual guest residing within its walls. Yet, no housekeeper had ever seen a soul enter or leave its threshold. No bellhop had ever carried luggage to its door. It was a room that existed in a state of perpetual paradox, a phantom presence in the hotel's bustling ledger. The mystery surrounding it deepened with each passing year, a silent, unsettling question mark hanging over the 14th floor. Elena Rodriguez, the hotel's meticulous and pragmatic manager, stumbled upon this profound irregularity while sifting through archaic occupancy reports. Her sharp eyes, accustomed to the precise order of ledgers, immediately flagged the impossible consistency of room 1408. It was an outlier that screamed for attention. The room generated revenue, its bills paid with an eerie punctuality. Room service orders, meticulously detailed, were placed and fulfilled, though no one ever claimed the trays. Even more unsettling, the front desk received calls from 1408, complaints about phantom noises or requests for fresh towels. Yet security camera footage of the hallway showed only an unbroken stretch of empty carpet. The room was a living, breathing entity, yet utterly devoid of visible life. Against every fiber of her professional caution, against every protocol ingrained by years of hotel management, Elena felt an irresistible pull to investigate room 1408 personally. The elevator ride to the 14th floor became an agonizing ascent, each floor number lighting up with a deliberate, almost mocking slowness. The ancient machinery groaned, a sound that seemed to echo the building's own reluctance. It felt as if the very structure of the BlackWood Hotel was actively resisting her intrusion, its aged timbers groaning in protest, its unseen forces attempting to dissuade her from her perilous quest. The air within the confined space grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence, pressing down on her with an almost physical weight. Each passing moment stretched into an eternity, a prelude to the unknown. Stepping out onto the 14th floor, Elena was met by a corridor that stretched impossibly long, its perspective warped and distorted. The dim, flickering lights cast dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and contort, transforming familiar shapes into monstrous silhouettes. The air here was colder, carrying a faint metallic tang like old blood or forgotten iron. At the very end of this spectral hallway, bathed in an unnatural gloom, stood the door to room 1408. It was an ordinary door, yet it radiated an aura of profound otherness, a silent invitation to a place beyond human comprehension. Elena's master key, usually so reliable, felt heavy and cold in her trembling hand. It turned in the lock with an unnerving ease, a soft click echoing in the oppressive silence. The door swung inward, revealing not a room but a swirling vortex of temporal displacement. Elena gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The space within existed in multiple time periods simultaneously, a disorienting tapestry woven from disparate eras. Art Deco furniture from the 1920s shimmered and faded. overlapping with the vibrant, kitschy decor of the 1950s. Modern amenities, sleek and anachronistic, materialized and dissolved, superimposed upon the faded grandeur of bygone decades. Each era brought its own distinct atmosphere, its own unique set of furnishings, its own silent stories. The room was a living, breathing paradox, a place where the past, present and future converged in a dizzying, impossible dance. Elena watched in horrified fascination as translucent figures moved through the room, spectral inhabitants from different epochs, utterly unaware of each other's presence. A businessman from the 1920s, his fedora tilted jauntily, adjusted his tie in a mirror that simultaneously reflected a woman from the 1980s, applying vibrant makeup. A flapper from the roaring 20s danced a silent jig through the ghostly form of a 1960s housewife vacuuming an invisible rug. They were echoes, imprints of lives once lived, trapped within the room's temporal distortions. Their movements were fluid, their expressions serene, yet their very existence was a chilling testament to the room's unnatural power. Elena felt a profound sense of dread, a cold realization that these were not mere apparitions, but fragments of souls forever bound to this impossible space. The room began to writhe, to contort, its impossible dimensions collapsing in on themselves. Decades of time folded together like pages in a rapidly closing book, the distinct eras blurring into a chaotic, terrifying kaleidoscope. The air grew thick with the scent of dust and decay, mingled with the faint, sweet perfume of forgotten lives. Elena stumbled backward, her mind reeling from the impossible spectacle. The walls seemed to breathe, the floor to undulate, as if the room itself was a living, hungry entity. She fled, scrambling backward towards the door, desperate to escape its devouring embrace. But as she reached the threshold, a chorus of voices, dozens of them, whispered and wailed in unison, their pleas echoing from every corner of the collapsing space. "Don't leave us here alone." The next morning, Elena returned to the BlackWood Hotel, her mind still reeling from the previous night's impossible encounter. But what greeted her was not the familiar, albeit decaying, structure. The hotel was gone. Not just empty of guests, but utterly, completely vanished. The grand lobby, the ornate fixtures, the very walls themselves had dissolved into nothingness. Where the imposing BlackWood Hotel had stood for nearly a century, there was now only an empty lot, a desolate patch of earth. Only the faint outline of a foundation remained, a ghostly scar on the urban landscape. Room 1408 had not merely consumed its occupants, it had devoured the entire building, pulling it back through the currents of time until nothing remained but the original, vacant plot. The chilling truth, unearthed by Elena in dusty city archives, was a twist of fate more horrifying than any ghost story. The BlackWood Hotel had indeed been built in 1924, but it had burned to the ground just days after its grand opening, a catastrophic fire consuming it before it could truly begin its life. For nearly a century, guests had been checking into a hotel that existed only in the liminal space between life and death, a spectral illusion sustained by the echoes of those who had unknowingly stepped into its temporal trap. They had been checking into a dream, a nightmare, a place that was never truly there. The midnight train. The 11:47 to Millbrook, a route long abandoned, a schedule erased from official records. It hadn't run since 1962, when the relentless march of progress, or perhaps simply budget cuts, finally closed the line. Yet for those who lived within earshot of the old Grayson station, the silence was an illusion. They swore they still heard it every night right on schedule, a phantom echo of a bygone era, a spectral journey that defied logic and time. Enter Sarah Martinez, a name whispered with a mix of skepticism and awe in the paranormal community. She was a seasoned investigator, her reputation built on debunking the sensational and grounding the inexplicable in cold, hard fact. Sarah arrived at Grayson with a singular purpose: to dismantle this persistent urban legend. Her arsenal included state-of-the-art night vision cameras, sensitive audio recorders, and an unwavering belief in the rationale. She was convinced the sounds were merely the groaning of settling metal, the mournful sigh of wind through derelict structures. or perhaps the collective delusion of a small, isolated community. The night air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten history. At precisely 11:43 p.m., Sarah positioned herself on the crumbling platform, the very spot where countless witnesses claimed to have seen the impossible. Her sophisticated equipment hummed softly, registering only the mundane. Normal background radiation, a steady ambient temperature, nothing to suggest the imminent arrival of anything out of the ordinary. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant chirping of crickets. Then it began. A sound so subtle it might have been imagined, a low, mournful whistle. It seemed to emanate from the eastern tunnel, a distant, sorrowful cry that resonated deep within the bones. Sarah's audio equipment, usually so stable, suddenly went haywire. Its needles danced wildly, registering frequencies far below the threshold of human hearing, a cacophony of inaudible dread. A faint tremor began to vibrate through the ground, a deep, resonant rumbling that grew steadily louder. From the inky blackness of the tunnel, a single point of light emerged. It pulsed with an eerie intensity, growing brighter with each passing second, like a dying star struggling to ignite. The light illuminated the rust-covered tracks, and in that impossible glow the corroded steel gleamed as if freshly polished, wet with an unseen dew. Sarah's night vision cameras, designed to capture the unseen, recorded something truly impossible. A fully operational steam locomotive, its design unmistakably from the 1940s, thundered into view. It was a relic, a ghost-made manifest, defying every law of physics and time. The colossal machine pulled into the station with a deafening hiss of steam, followed by the agonizing screech of brakes. The air filled with the metallic tang of hot iron and the phantom scent of coal smoke. Through the grimy windows of the passenger cars, Sarah saw them. Figures in period clothing, their faces pale and indistinct, sat in silent rows. Some appeared to be reading newspapers, their pages yellowed and brittle. Others checked pocket watches, their movements precise and unhurried. They seemed utterly oblivious, trapped in a timeless tableau, unaware they were decades out of sync with the world outside. A figure emerged from the locomotive, a conductor in a crisp, old-fashioned uniform. He stepped onto the platform, his movements stiff, almost mechanical, and consulted a gleaming pocket watch. Its ticking was unnaturally loud in the sudden stillness. "All aboard for Millbrook," he called, his voice a chilling monotone as if speaking from the depths of a deep, cold well. "Final departure. All souls aboard." The words hung in the air, heavy with an unspoken finality, a promise of a journey from which there was no return. Against every instinct, every fiber of her rational being, Sarah found herself moving. Drawn by an unseen force, she approached the spectral train, her camera still recording, a silent witness to the impossible. As she drew closer, the passengers within the cars turned their heads. Their faces, once indistinct, now held expressions of profound, desperate hope. It was as if they had been waiting for decades for someone to finally see them, to acknowledge their endless plight. Sarah reached the open door of a passenger car, a threshold between worlds. Inside, the air was cold, stagnant, yet filled with an electric hum. Translucent hands, shimmering like heat haze, reached out towards her from the rows of seats. A chorus of whispers, faint yet piercing, filled the car. "Help us," they pleaded in unison, their voices a mournful sigh. "We've been riding this line for 60 years. We can't find our way home." Their words were a chilling testament to an eternal, inescapable torment. As the digital clock on Sarah's equipment flickered to midnight, the train began to fade. Its solid form wavered, becoming translucent, then almost ethereal. The horrible truth, a revelation that chilled her to the bone, slammed into Sarah with the force of a physical blow. The 1147 to Millbrook hadn't just been discontinued, it had crashed in 1962, a catastrophic derailment that claimed every life aboard. These were the lost souls, trapped in an endless loop, riding the same route every night, forever unable to reach their final destination. They were specters of a tragedy, bound to their last journey. The train vanished, leaving Sarah alone on the desolate platform, surrounded by her silent equipment. The air was still, the silence profound, as if the very night held its breath. She stood there, a solitary figure under the indifferent stars, the weight of what she had witnessed pressing down on her. Later, back in the sterile glow of her lab, Sarah reviewed the footage. Frame by agonizing frame, she replayed the impossible encounter, and then, in the final, chilling frame, she saw it. Through the train window, among the spectral passengers, sat a figure. It was herself, her face pale, her eyes vacant, checking her phone as if it were a pocket watch. She had become part of the midnight train's eternal, inescapable journey. Still here. You made it through, this time. But the channel Cucuy isn't done with you. He feeds on curiosity. And you're already hooked. Subscribe before he finds someone else.